You don't belong in first class. The flight attendant's voice, Nicole's, was a sharp, dismissive snap. It was followed by the crisp rip of a perfectly valid boarding pass being torn in two as if it were nothing more than trash. The act wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a deep-seated rot within Horizon Airlines. But little did Nicole know the cure for that disease was the very man she had just humiliated, Marcus Carter. 6:23 p.m., the red-eye from Chicago to Los Angeles. The first-class cabin was quiet, luxurious, a sanctuary of typical high-end comforts. No Rolex, no suit, just a black t-shirt and jeans. Marcus's appearance was entirely unremarkable until you saw his destination, Seat 2A, a first-class seat booked under his real name and paid for in full. No favors, no special treatment. But when Marcus politely inquired about Seat 2A, flight attendant Nicole Harris, a woman from Ohio, offered nothing but a dismissive head-to-toe glance, her eyes scanning from his sneakers up to his plain t-shirt. Then, as if he were invisible, she turned back to her idle chatter with a colleague. "Excuse me," Marcus tried again, holding his pass directly in front of her. "I don't think you heard me. I'm looking for Seat 2A. This is my ticket." Nicole didn't even bother to look at it, her gaze remaining as cold as ice. "That seat is occupied." Marcus arched an eyebrow but kept his composure. "This says 2A, first class." Nicole barely acknowledged it. Watching from nearby, Mia, a 22-year-old trainee on her very first solo flight, couldn't just stand by. She had seen the boarding pass clearly, and she saw the baseless contempt in Nicole's eyes. After a moment's hesitation, she stepped forward. "Nicole, I'm sorry, but I believe his pass is valid. I checked the manifest just a moment ago." Nicole's voice dropped, laced with a terrifying chill. "Mia," she said, enunciating every word with precision, "if you want to keep this job, you will stay out of it. His kind doesn't belong in first class." Nicole's threat sent Mia shrinking back in silence, suddenly aware of the curious eyes of other passengers fixed on them. Nicole's face hardened. This little scene had to end now. "All right, let me just check one last time for you." It was a lie. Her hand swiped across the tablet as she deliberately punched in an incorrect code before turning the screen to face Marcus. The word invalid glowed in bold red. "Look," she said, her voice now loud enough for those nearby to hear. "The system doesn't lie, and we don't have time for these kinds of mix-ups. Economy is in the back, sir." But what Marcus didn't know was that the fate of Seat 2A had already been sealed. The proof arrived moments later in the form of James Thornton, a Hollywood producer being escorted toward the seat by another attendant. A whispered mention of a priority directive explained it all. Nicole gave a curt nod. The look she shot Marcus was no longer just contempt. It was the smug confirmation of a victor. Facing Nicole's condemning gaze, Marcus didn't flinch, nor did he raise his voice. Instead, he slowly placed his ticket on the counter. Then came the wallet. A pristine Illinois driver's license was withdrawn and laid neatly beside it, forming two pieces of irrefutable evidence. He looked up, meeting Nicole's eyes directly. "This is my identification," he said, his voice calm and measured. "The name is an exact match. If you refuse to assist, I will be forced to file a Level 1 service discrepancy report immediately." Having just walked over, Captain Daniel Pierce scoffed. With arms crossed and a smirk on his lips, he spoke loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear. "We've had enough of people trying to scam their way into seats they didn't pay for. Policy is policy." That word, policy, hung in the air like a loaded gun. Marcus scanned the cabin. James Thornton was now comfortably settled in 2A, sipping champagne. His seat. It was as if they hadn't just taken part in a silent heist. Mia, still standing nearby, looked over with wide eyes. "But his ticket scanned green," she whispered, as if that simple fact should have mattered. But it didn't. Not to Nicole. And certainly not to Captain Daniel Pierce. Marcus's words were a stone cast on a still lake, but for Nicole they didn't make a single ripple. She remembered her discreet swipe on the tablet just moments before, wiping Marcus Carter's name clean from the seating manifest. No proof, no problem. She was in control of the truth. A derisive laugh escaped her. "A report? You think using big words is going to intimidate me?" She crossed her arms, her eyes raking him up and down. "Let's be honest. People dressed like you wouldn't even know how to find the complaint form on the website." Marcus let out a sharp breath, muttering, "So this is how you treat people who don't fit the first-class profile." He looked directly into Nicole's eyes, his calm now carrying a chilling weight. The placid exterior vanished, replaced by an ice-cold confidence. "Nicole," he said, his voice level but laced with steel, "perhaps I should skip the standard reporting channels. Perhaps I should just make a call, straight to the person who signs your paychecks." The words were a match thrown on a powder keg. Nicole's arrogance erupted into pure rage. "Who do you think you are?" she practically screamed. "Rip!" In a furious motion, she snatched the ticket from Marcus and tore it in two. "Fake ticket, fake ID, you're causing a disturbance." Nicole reached for his wallet and phone. "Under security protocol, I have the right to confiscate your property and have you detained immediately." Nicole's threat hung in the air. The cabin fell into a thick, suffocating silence. But for Marcus, this silence had a familiar ring. It took him back 20 years to a small office facing a hiring manager, a 25-year-old Marcus full of ambition being told he wasn't the image we're looking for. That phrase had defined his entire career. And now in this silence, he realized nothing had changed. Different faces, same judgment. Just then, a small voice whispered from behind, "Mommy, he didn't do anything wrong." The mother simply nodded in silent agreement. The boy's whisper had barely faded when a sharp beep cut through the air from the crew-only intercom. "Cockpit to cabin," Captain Daniel's voice crackled, cold and final. "First class, remove the disruptive passenger immediately. We're behind schedule." It was the command Nicole had been waiting for. Her eyes lit up with validated authority. She signaled to another attendant, Linda, and they both advanced on Marcus, two shadows about to carry out an unjust order. But they didn't know that in seat 7A, a passenger named Sarah had been quietly watching everything. Her phone was held low, camera on, recording the entire drama. As Nicole and Linda began to move, Sarah's thumb was already swiping across the screen. While the public battle escalated under the first-class lights, with a viral video in the making and an expulsion order given, another war, a silent one, was already being waged. Somewhere far from Chicago, a signal had been received. The protocol, known as the Level 1 Service Discrepancy Report, was now active. Engaging now, Rachel, Marcus's assistant, spoke into her phone, her voice professional and devoid of emotion. She fed Marcus a steady stream of updates, her words like invisible bullets aimed at an unsuspecting enemy. "System is tracking. We've pulled Nicole's file. There's a history, cross-referencing with Daniel's logs, finding concealment. Buried complaints are being surfaced." On the flight, Nicole thought she held all the cards. She had no idea that her every action, every word she and Daniel uttered was being collected, analyzed, and about to be turned into evidence against them. As Marcus was being escorted away, Mia blocked their path. "Stop. I have proof you admitted to erasing his name." She held up her phone, and Nicole's own smug voice echoed from the speaker, recounting her victory. Captain Daniel Pierce, his face pale, snarled, "You recorded the crew?" Mia nodded, the initial fear in her eyes now replaced by a steely resolve. "Yes, I did, and I will not stand by and watch you destroy this airline's reputation." Nicole, her smirk completely gone, stammered, "That's illegal. You're just a trainee." A passenger shouted from his seat, his voice booming through the cabin, "So is tearing up someone's ticket and falsifying records. Which one's more illegal?" The cabin erupted in murmurs of agreement. The weight of the truth was shifting in Marcus's favor. Amid the chaos, Marcus, who had been observing in silence, paid special attention to the young flight attendant. This girl, a mere trainee, had shown extraordinary courage. He had seen her hesitate at first, yet each time the injustice peaked, she was the one who stepped forward. There was a familiarity in her fire of integrity, something he had seen before. Feeling the surge of support, Mia raised her phone higher. "I don't just have the audio, I also filmed Nicole erasing Mr. Carter's name from the seating system." She hit play. A short, slightly shaky video appeared, showing Nicole muttering and tapping at her tablet, followed by a shot of the flight manifest with a glaringly empty space next to C2A. Nicole crumbled. You edited that. It's doctored." Her accusations were now weak, desperate. No one was buying it anymore. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes locked on Mia. The chaos around them seemed to melt away. He looked straight at the young woman who stood like a beacon of truth in the middle of the storm. He paused, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. His voice, now low and laced with genuine curiosity, asked, "What's your full name?" Mia hesitated, her voice softening with a personal weight. "Mia Anderson, daughter of Olivia Anderson, the former head of customer experience." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Olivia Anderson, one of the most talented and principled leaders Horizon had ever had. The woman who had resigned 2 years prior, frustrated by the cultural rot she felt was eroding everything she had built. Marcus looked at Mia with a newfound, deeper respect. He nodded slowly, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Mia Anderson," he said, his voice unusually warm. Then, as if drawing strength from that memory, he turned to face the rest of the flight crew. The gentleness in his tone vanished, replaced by absolute authority. "The game is over," he declared, "because I'm Marcus Carter, CEO and 25% shareholder of Horizon Airlines. And as of this moment, the board of directors has been informed of every second of this incident." Silence fell over the cabin. Nicole's mouth dropped open. Daniel stammered, "You're lying." Marcus didn't flinch. A moment later, a calm, authoritative male voice rang out through the speaker on Marcus's phone. "This is James Thompson, a member of Horizon's board of directors. We have received the full recordings from Marcus Carter and employee Mia. This situation is being handled internally. Any Horizon staff attempting further interference will be terminated." Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "Holy hell, that is the CEO." As the terminated crew was escorted away, a solemn quiet settled over the first-class cabin. Marcus Carter, now fully in control, stood with Mia Anderson, the trainee who had become a symbol of courage. But Mia's expression wasn't one of pure relief. There was a hesitation, a weight in her eyes. "Mr. Carter," Mia began, her voice low, pulling him from his thoughts of reform. There's something you need to know." Marcus frowned, sensing the gravity in her tone. "What is it?" "When I rechecked the system after your ticket scanned through," she said, her eyes meeting his, "I saw an unusual flag. Someone inside Horizon tried to cancel your ticket about an hour before the flight." The system rejected it because it was already confirmed, and the person who made the request wasn't Nicole or Daniel. The air in the cabin seemed to freeze. A conspiracy? This wasn't just random discrimination? Marcus looked at Mia, the sharpness returning to his eyes. Are you sure? Positive, Mia affirmed. The request came from a high-level internal IP. I took a screenshot. Before Marcus could even process this bombshell, another voice rang out from the passenger rows, sharp and clear. She's right, but there's a more critical piece to this. They weren't trying to stop you. They were using you. All eyes snapped to the woman who had spoken. It was the passenger from the 7th row, the one who had been watching everything in silence. She stood, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. She did not look like an ordinary passenger. My name is Sarah Jenkins, she said, her voice carrying through the cabin, and I am a former employee of Horizon Airlines. I was fired 2 years ago for attempting to expose Captain Daniel Pierce and his web of corruption. Another wave of shock rippled through the cabin. So Daniel, the man just escorted away, wasn't just a bigoted captain. He was part of something much, much bigger. Sarah continued, her voice thick with suppressed outrage. For the last 6 months, I've been gathering evidence. Daniel and his crew had a system for reselling first-class seats, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Someone much higher up has been protecting them. Someone who knew you were investigating, Marcus. This person didn't want you to fail. They wanted you to succeed in exposing Daniel's team. Sarah pulled a USB drive from her purse. Their plan was devious. They leaked that a secret audit was happening on this flight, baiting Nicole and Daniel into acting as foolishly as possible. They knew their personalities would make them walk right into the trap. Meanwhile, the real mastermind was playing the hero in your ear, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. The silence was now leaden. Marcus felt a cold chill run down his sight. Someone wanted him to win, just to hide a much larger war. Sarah's gaze swept the cabin, then landed on the still-connected phone in Marcus's hand, where his assistant's voice had just been broadcast. Her eyes locked onto the device. Why? Sarah looked directly at Marcus. To become the person you trust the most, and there is no enemy more dangerous than one you implicitly trust. This whole investigation was just a stage play for them to hide their true role. The mastermind, Sarah said, her voice turning to ice, is the person you trust completely, the one who confirmed everything for you over the phone, the one who briefed the board and recorded everything. Rachel, your loyal assistant, is the one pulling all the strings. Marcus's entire world seemed to shatter in that instant. He slowly raised his phone, his eyes wide with disbelief. It all made sense now. Rachel was always one step ahead because she wasn't reacting, she was directing. From the phone's speaker, Rachel's efficient professional voice was gone. There was only dead silence. Then a single sterile click. She had hung up. Marcus stood frozen in the aisle. The battle he thought he had just won was nothing more than a stage play, orchestrated by the one person he trusted most. The real enemy wasn't the bigot in front of him, but the voice that had been whispering in his ear the entire time. Marcus stepped into the aisle to face the passengers. The outrage on his face had been replaced by a sincere resolve. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I apologize for the ordeal you have all been forced to witness. I want to thank those of you who spoke up and those who offered your silent support. You have reminded us what this airline should stand for." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Rachel, Nicole, Daniel." His voice was firm. "They are terminated, effective immediately. Horizon Airlines has a zero-tolerance policy for deceit and discrimination. A replacement crew is on its way. This flight will be delayed, but I promise you it will take off, And on this flight, and on every Horizon Airlines flight from this day forward, every single passenger will be treated with the dignity and fairness they deserve. That is my personal promise. A different kind of applause erupted through the cabin, louder and more sustained than before. It wasn't just appreciation, it was the sound of trust beginning to be rebuilt. 10 minutes later, the atmosphere at the terminal outside Gate B14 was just as tense as it had been inside the cabin. Only now, the disgraced flight crew stood under the airport's fluorescent lights, stripped of their titles, holding their carry-ons like common travelers. Marcus Carter stepped off the plane for a moment, flanked by 2 security officers. Nicole stood rigid, her mascara streaked beneath her eyes, whispering over and over that she didn't know, that it was all a misunderstanding. "You knew exactly what you were doing," Marcus said, his voice level but final. "You didn't need to know who I was. All you needed to know was that I was a human being who paid for a seat and presented a valid ID." Marcus continued, "Your employee files are closed. You will receive no severance. Your access has been revoked." Then came Captain Daniel Pierce, once the highest authority on the aircraft, now little more than a man in a uniform who had forgotten that leadership begins with listening. "I have 23 years of service," he muttered. "Then you should have known better," Marcus replied sharply, "and that just makes this worse." Security officers gestured for them to head toward the terminal exit. As they disappeared into the crowd, Marcus turned back toward seat 2A, where he had belonged all along. This time no one questioned, no one challenged, no one dared. Mia stood beside him, reporting, "The new crew has been briefed and is boarding now. We can resume the flight in 15 minutes. Marcus took one last look around. "Make sure every passenger affected today receives a personal apology, a full refund, and a lifetime platinum membership, no exceptions. And Mia," he added, "prepare to be mentored by our head of DEI." Mia's eyes widened again. "For real?" "For real," Marcus said with a smile. "This company needs more people like you." Sarah chimed in. "Marcus, the video I posted just updated. Horizon Shock just passed 75,000 views. The press is requesting a statement." "Let them watch," he said. "We're not making a spectacle. We're making a statement of accountability." He stepped back onto the jet bridge, ready to reboard not just the plane, but a new era for the airline he had helped build, not through press releases or social media spin, but through action, consequence, and redemption, all before takeoff. The wheels of Flight 227 finally lifted off the Chicago runway at 8:12 p.m., nearly 2 hours behind schedule. But for the 134 passengers on board, not a single complaint was heard. In fact, the cabin was unusually quiet, as if everyone understood they were part of something larger than a delayed departure, something that would be remembered long after the fasten seatbelt sign went dark. Months later, new policies would be rolled out across Horizon's 48 bases, a zero-tolerance stance on discrimination, mandatory bias response training, and direct reporting channels to the board of directors. Mia would be named the regional lead for that training, and Marcus, he would quietly see to it that every cabin at 30,000 feet became a place where no one ever had to justify their right to be there.